Eli stood at the edge of the platform, feeling the gentle hum of the arena beneath his feet. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The Andromeda Grand Arena was enormous, stretching far into the sky, with hundreds of thousands of alien spectators watching from floating galleries that glimmered like stars. Above, light refracted through energy fields, creating a rainbow of colors that danced across the arena floor. Eli's heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. He knew that all eyes were on him, and many of those eyes were not friendly. Across from him, Lord Virex moved with grace and confidence. The alien noble's skin shimmered in a silver hue, and his eyes glowed with a sharp intelligence. Virex was tall, far taller than Eli, and his movements were precise and fluid, as though he had rehearsed every step for years. The spectators cheered, their voices blending into a continuous hum of excitement. They were certain of the outcome. In their minds, humans were clever, but weak. Aliens, particularly nobles like Virex, were unmatched in every arena of competition. Lord Virex raised his head and looked directly at Eli. His gaze was sharp, almost piercing. Eli held the gaze without flinching. The alien's lips curled into a small, confident smile. "You understand what is at stake, human?" Virex's voice echoed through the arena, amplified by invisible sound waves. "This is no ordinary challenge. I am betting my personal honor that you will fail. If you lose, you owe nothing. But if you somehow win—" His smile widened, almost cruelly. "I will owe you a favor. One that could change your species' place in this galaxy." Eli did not respond immediately. He studied Virex carefully. There was pride in the alien's posture, arrogance in the sharpness of his gaze, and overconfidence in the way he assumed victory before even the competition had begun. Eli realized that this was exactly the edge he needed. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but no species had ever matched human ingenuity when the odds seemed impossible. Eli allowed a small, calm smile to form. "I understand," he said, his voice steady, "and I accept your wager." A ripple of shock passed through the audience. Some gasped, others laughed quietly. The idea that a human could compete with an alien noble and possibly win was ludicrous to many. But that made Eli's position even stronger. In this arena, expectations could be as dangerous as any obstacle, and he intended to use every assumption against him. He turned his attention to the first part of the challenge, which had already begun. A massive platform descended from above, revealing the arena's first obstacle. It was unlike any obstacle Eli had ever seen. Giant structures shifted and rotated in ways that seemed impossible. Some floated above the ground, defying gravity, while others rotated rapidly, forcing anyone trying to pass them to time their movements perfectly. There were bridges that disappeared the moment you stepped on them, and platforms that only revealed themselves when a weight sensor detected the correct motion. Eli could feel the intensity of the challenge, but he did not panic. Instead, he observed. Lord Virex stepped forward, his long limbs moving with fluid precision. He had trained for arenas like this his entire life. His first steps were flawless, and he crossed the initial platforms with ease. The crowd erupted into cheers. Eli watched the noble's movements carefully, noting patterns and timing. Then he stepped forward himself, taking his first calculated move. Unlike Virex, he did not rely on strength or speed. Instead, he tested each platform lightly with a foot, sensing the timing and adjusting his path based on what he observed. Where Virex relied on practiced patterns, Eli relied on observation and adaptation. The difference was subtle but important. On a spinning platform, Virex leapt with a single confident motion, while Eli waited for a moment, then jumped with careful precision. The difference in approach caused a minor shift in the platform's rotation, revealing a hidden path. Eli moved forward with quiet satisfaction. Knowing he had found a method the aliens had not considered, the audience's reactions began to change. Some spectators leaned forward, whispering in astonishment. The human, seemingly weak and inexperienced, was making progress where many assumed he would fail immediately. Lord Virex noticed it too. His confident smile faltered slightly as he observed Eli's careful approach. "Interesting," Virex muttered under his breath. He adjusted his movements, but the human continued to advance. Eli had no weapon, no technology beyond his human instincts. Yet he navigated the platforms with a surprising creativity that even the alien could not immediately anticipate. Virex felt the first spark of doubt, though he would never admit it to the audience. Pride demanded that he maintain composure, but internally, he began to question the certainty of his own victory. As the challenge progressed, Eli encountered obstacles that tested both his mind and body. One platform required him to manipulate energy fields to open a gate. Another involved arranging floating blocks in a specific order to reveal the next path. The human solved, each with a combination of logic, observation, and creativity. Every success fueled his confidence and slowly chipped away at the crowd's assumption that he would fail. Murmurs turned into applause, and applause into astonished cheers. Lord Virex continued to move forward, but his pace slowed. He realized that the obstacles were designed not just to test strength, but flexibility, creativity, and quick thinking. The human's ability to adapt was unexpected, and Virex had never faced an opponent who did not rely on brute power or alien technology. For the first time, he felt genuine concern. His honor was at stake, and the human was showing an unpredictable skill that he had not anticipated. The arena shifted suddenly, revealing a new section that looked impossible to cross. Platforms rotated wildly, energy barriers pulsed unpredictably, and some structures hovered far above the ground. Virex leaped confidently, missing a small timing window, and stumbled slightly. Eli, observing the exact same challenge, waited for the pulse of the energy barriers, then moved with careful precision, avoiding every obstacle. For a moment, he felt like the entire arena was a puzzle created just for him, a challenge he could solve, not with power, but with thought. The crowd's reaction grew louder. Many aliens had never seen a human move with such calm determination. Some whispered that perhaps humans were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Eli's calm, deliberate actions inspired a sense of wonder rather than fear. In a way, the human reminded the spectators of why challenges like this existed, not to test strength alone, but to reveal intelligence, creativity, and courage under pressure. Lord Virex's confidence was fading. He maintained a composed expression, but internally, he questioned every assumption he had made about humans. Pride had led him to underestimate Eli, and the result was clear. The human had not only kept pace with him but had begun to excel in areas that the noble could not anticipate. Virex clenched his fists subtly, feeling the first tug of anxiety. His honor, the very essence of his identity, depended on the outcome of this challenge. He could not afford to lose, yet he could not ignore the skill and ingenuity of the human before him. Eli reached a particularly difficult obstacle, a floating platform with no visible means of support, hovering in the air with only subtle energy waves beneath it. It required precise timing, a careful read of the energy patterns, and a sense of balance that was unusual even among aliens. Many spectators gasped as Eli moved forward slowly, his eyes fixed on the faint shifts in the platform's position. Step by step, he advanced, never rushing, never panicking, and without the slightest hesitation. Finally, he reached the platform's edge, jumping to the next stage with grace and precision. The crowd erupted. It was clear that Eli's progress was no accident. He had not relied on strength or alien technology. He had relied on careful observation, creative problem-solving, and patience. Every step was a testament to human adaptability and intelligence. Lord Virex, witnessing this, felt an unfamiliar pang of respect mixed with regret. He had underestimated humans, and that underestimation had brought him to a moment where the outcome was uncertain. The first part of the challenge concluded, and Eli paused to catch his breath. He looked around the arena, seeing the astonishment on the faces of both aliens and humans watching from afar. He did not boast or celebrate. He simply continued to focus on the path ahead. Lord Virex approached him, bowing slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. The noble's expression remained proud. But Eli noticed the subtle shift in his eyes. The arrogance that had defined Virex's presence was now tempered with caution. As the next section of the arena descended, Eli felt a thrill of anticipation. This challenge was not merely about winning or losing. It was about proving that humans could rise above expectations. That intelligence, creativity, and adaptability were forces as powerful as strength or technology. And in that moment, Eli realized that this was more than a competition. It was an opportunity to change perceptions, to show that humans were capable of greatness in a galaxy that often overlooked them. He smiled quietly to himself, ready for whatever the next challenge would bring, confident that he had already achieved something greater than victory. He had earned attention, respect, and the possibility of rewriting what others believed about his species. The next part of the arena unfolded with a soft hum, and Eli felt the subtle vibration beneath his feet. The structure that emerged was far more complex than the first. Giant beams shifted in unpredictable patterns, platforms floated at different heights, and streams of energy formed invisible walls that could only be sensed by careful observation. Unlike the first section, where some mistakes could be corrected, this part demanded sharper attention, quicker thinking, and absolute precision. Eli knew that one wrong step could force him to start over, but he welcomed the challenge. Lord Virex moved forward with his usual fluid confidence. The noble's long limbs carried him swiftly over the floating platforms, his silver-hued skin reflecting the shifting lights of the arena. He had adjusted slightly after watching Eli in the first stage. Where he had relied on raw speed before, now he studied the energy flows more carefully, trying to anticipate the patterns. Yet even with his training, there were moments when the platforms reacted in ways he had not expected. Small hesitations flickered across his face, though the audience remained largely unaware. Virex's pride demanded that he maintain the appearance of calm control. Eli stepped carefully onto the first floating beam. It trembled slightly under his weight, but he adjusted instinctively. Humans were not the fastest or the strongest, but their ability to adapt quickly to new situations was remarkable. He tested each step, gauging the timing of the beams and the movement of the energy streams. When he reached a section where two platforms rotated toward each other, he paused, observing the rotation cycle. Then, with precise timing, he jumped across both platforms, landing softly. The crowd, who had been watching with quiet curiosity, now murmured in astonishment. The challenge was designed not just to test movement, but observation and ingenuity. There were platforms that required solving subtle puzzles. Mid-step, some beams would sink slightly if too much weight was applied at once, while others responded to the rhythm of footsteps. Eli moved in a rhythm of his own making, a combination of observation, anticipation, and careful experimentation. With each success, he felt more confident. His mind was engaged in a way that made the physical challenge feel almost secondary. Lord Virex was beginning to feel an unfamiliar sensation, uncertainty. He had never faced an opponent who approached challenges like Eli. The human did not rely on strength, agility, or any technology. He relied on careful thought, patience, and adaptability. Every time Virex took a step that seemed certain, Eli found a way to match or exceed him. The noble began to realize that underestimating a human had been a grave mistake. Pride, he thought bitterly, could blind even the most skilled warrior. The next obstacle was more complex, a series of floating platforms arranged in a spiral, with pulsing energy fields between them. The challenge required moving in a specific sequence to avoid triggering a barrier that would push the competitor back to the start. Lord Virex leaped forward, relying on his instincts and strength, but the sequence shifted in a way that he had not anticipated. He stumbled slightly, catching himself on a rotating platform. Eli, observing carefully, stepped lightly onto the first platform. He noted the subtle pulse of the energy fields and timed his movement perfectly. Step by step, he progressed, his actions precise and deliberate. The crowd's murmurs grew into audible gasps. It was becoming clear that Eli was not just keeping pace. He was excelling in ways that no one had predicted. Spectators began whispering that perhaps humans were more capable than their reputation suggested. Virex noticed the change in audience reaction, and it made him uneasy. He had always believed that strength, skill, and honor were enough to guarantee victory. Yet here was a human, seemingly ordinary by alien standards, moving with a combination of creativity, observation, and calm determination that challenged everything he believed. Eli reached a section where he had to manipulate floating blocks to create a path forward. The blocks hovered in midair, rotating slowly, and each had a unique energy signature. Moving one block without disturbing the others required careful timing and thought. Many spectators expected the human to fail, imagining that he would panic or make a mistake. Instead, Eli observed the blocks, tested their movement gently, and created a sequence that allowed him to pass smoothly. The audience erupted into cheers. Lord Virex's eyes narrowed as he realized that Eli's approach was methodical and innovative, completely different from anything he had trained for. Virex moved forward, attempting to adapt his strategy. He was powerful, skilled, and experienced, but this obstacle demanded a patience he had rarely needed before. He misjudged one of the blocks, and it shifted slightly out of alignment. The human, noticing the slight misstep, adjusted quickly and moved ahead. Virex clenched his jaw, feeling a mixture of frustration and respect. He had never faced an opponent who could remain so calm under pressure, who could solve challenges in ways that defied his expectations. As the arena shifted again, revealing the next stage, Eli paused briefly. It was not a moment of fear, but a moment of focus. The path ahead was a complex array of platforms, rotating energy fields, and puzzle-like structures that required both strategy and physical agility. Eli studied the layout carefully. He noticed patterns in the rotation of platforms, subtle differences in the energy pulses, and even slight changes in lighting that hinted at hidden paths. He realized that speed alone would not win this stage. Observing, analyzing, and thinking several steps ahead would. Lord Virex advanced as well, but every step he took required more effort than before. The obstacles were designed for experience and precision, and while he possessed both, Eli's ingenuity was proving a difficult challenge. The noble's confidence began to waver, though he would never admit it publicly. To lose this wager would not only mean embarrassment but also a dent in his reputation that might never heal. Pride, he realized, could not always protect him from unexpected skill. The next obstacle required both competitors to navigate a rotating maze of floating beams. Some beams would vanish briefly when stepped upon, while others shifted unpredictably. Many spectators leaned forward in their seats, knowing that this part of the challenge would separate the skilled from the unprepared. Eli paused at the entrance of the maze, observing the rotation patterns and noting the safe paths. He moved carefully, timing each step, and advanced with precision. Lord Virex moved swiftly as well, but his reliance on instinct, rather than careful observation, caused him to hesitate at moments when timing was critical. Eli's approach to the maze highlighted the difference between human adaptability and alien training. Where Virex relied on learned patterns and physical skill, Eli relied on observation, reasoning, and creativity. Each step he took was deliberate, each decision carefully calculated. The human's progress was smooth and assured, while the alien noble, though still skilled, showed signs of stress. For the first time in his life, Lord Virex faced an opponent he could not predict with certainty. As they progressed, the crowd's reaction grew louder. Cheers for Eli echoed across the arena, mixing with astonished whispers from those who had expected the human to fail. The audience was beginning to understand that strength alone did not determine the outcome. Ingenuity, patience, and adaptability were equally, if not more, important. Eli felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, not from the cheering, but from the understanding that his approach was working. Every step was proof that humans could rise above assumptions and expectations. The final section of this stage presented an intricate puzzle. Platforms that required simultaneous activation, energy barriers that needed precise timing, and a sequence of steps that could only be solved by careful observation. Many competitors would have panicked or rushed, relying on strength or reflexes. Eli paused, observing the subtle cues in the platforms and energy fields. He tested a few small steps, noting the effect of each movement, and then began to move deliberately through the puzzle. Lord Virex approached the puzzle as well. He had strength, experience, and skill. But his method relied on power and timing rather than careful observation. A minor misstep caused a temporary setback. Eli noticed it, adjusting his own movements to avoid repeating the mistake. The difference in approach was clear. The human's calm, logical, and creative thinking allowed him to progress smoothly, while the noble struggled with the unexpected nuances of the challenge. When Eli completed the puzzle and reached the exit of this stage, the crowd erupted into sustained applause. Lord Virex, moving forward shortly afterward, bowed slightly, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement. Even in the middle of the challenge, the noble could not deny the skill and ingenuity he had witnessed. For the first time, he realized that humans, despite their physical limitations compared to some alien species, possessed qualities that could surpass strength and training. As the arena shifted to prepare for the next part of the competition, Eli allowed himself a quiet smile. The challenges were becoming more difficult, but so was his opportunity to demonstrate that humans could overcome obstacles through observation, reasoning, and creativity. He felt no fear, only anticipation. Each stage was not just a test of skill, but a chance to change perceptions and earn respect. Lord Virex, on the other hand, could not shake a growing sense of concern. His honor was tied to this wager, and the human was proving to be an opponent unlike any he had faced. The noble's pride demanded confidence, yet he could not ignore the evidence before him. Eli was not merely competing. He was excelling in ways that challenged the very assumptions of alien superiority. As the sun-like lights of the arena shifted, signaling the approach of the next stage, Eli prepared himself. He had survived the first part and excelled in the second, not by strength or aggression, but by using his mind and observing every detail. Lord Virex, watching from nearby, felt a twinge of unease. He had made a wager of honor on the human's failure, and for the first time, he began to wonder if he might soon regret it. The arena was quiet for a moment, almost as if it too were holding its breath. Then, as the next stage descended, Eli took his first step forward, calm and confident. The challenge ahead was unknown, yet he faced it without fear, knowing that human ingenuity, patience, and creativity had brought him this far. The crowd watched in awe, anticipating what the human would do next, and wondering if, against all odds, he could continue to surpass expectations. The arena shifted again, this time revealing the most complex stage yet. A massive structure of floating platforms, rotating beams, and cascading energy fields stretched as far as Eli could see. The air vibrated with tension, and even the spectators seemed to hold their breath. This was not just a test of movement or observation, it demanded strategy, patience, and the ability to anticipate challenges before they appeared. Eli took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the thrill of the unknown. Lord Virex watched him carefully, every movement precise, every step deliberate. The noble had faced countless challenges in his life, yet this stage was unlike any he had encountered. He had assumed that humans were clever, but they lacked the instinct and physical advantage of his species. He had been wrong. The human before him combined intelligence with patience, creativity with observation, and now Virex began to feel a creeping sense of unease. His honor was at stake, and with every step Eli took, the possibility of losing grew more real. Eli approached the first floating platform. It rotated slowly, but unpredictably, and was surrounded by a field of shimmering energy waves. Many competitors would have rushed, relying on strength or speed to cross, but Eli paused. He observed the rotation, noting subtle changes in speed and alignment. Then, with careful precision, he stepped onto the platform, feeling its subtle movements and timing his next step. The crowd murmured, watching in astonishment as the human moved with quiet confidence. Lord Virax followed, stepping lightly yet with remarkable agility. He adjusted quickly, but the platform's irregular motion forced him to slow down. For the first time, he realized that sheer skill would not be enough. The human had something he had not anticipated, an ability to adapt and think several steps ahead. The noble's pride bristled, yet he could not ignore the fact that Eli's methodical approach was working. Every pause, every observation, gave the human an advantage that brute strength alone could not overcome. The next obstacle required competitors to activate floating panels in a precise sequence to open a path forward. Mistiming even a single step would trigger a minor setback, pushing the competitor back several platforms. Eli studied the panels, observing the faint glow patterns that indicated their sequence. Step by step, he pressed them in order, each movement deliberate and measured. The crowd gasped as he completed the sequence flawlessly, advancing to the next section without hesitation. Virax approached the panels with speed and confidence. He pressed several in rapid succession, assuming that instinct would guide him. A panel misaligned, and he had to backtrack. The human's patience and careful observation were paying off. Virax clenched his jaw, feeling the first real sting of doubt. He had wagered his honor, assuming victory was guaranteed. Yet here he was, struggling while the human moved forward effortlessly. As they continued, the challenge grew even more complex. Platforms shifted vertically and horizontally, some disappearing briefly and reappearing moments later. Energy fields pulsed unpredictably, creating barriers that required precise timing to navigate. Eli approached each obstacle not with fear but with calm calculation. He observed, tested, and adapted, finding solutions that seemed almost effortless to the spectators watching. The crowd's reaction shifted dramatically. Whispers of admiration spread through the galleries, some spectators even rising to their feet. They had come expecting the alien noble to dominate, but now they watched as a human surpassed expectation after expectation. Eli's movements were fluid yet thoughtful, creative yet precise. He was not merely surviving the challenges, he was mastering them. Virax, on the other hand, felt tension building inside him. He had faced many challenges before, but never one that required so much patience, observation, and adaptation. He had assumed that humans were limited by their physical weakness, yet Eli's performance was proof that cleverness and adaptability could rival strength and training. Pride and honor, he realized, were not enough to guarantee success. He had underestimated the human, and the consequences were becoming increasingly clear. The next section involved a series of rotating beams forming a spiral pathway, with energy barriers appearing at irregular intervals. Many aliens had failed here before. Relying on instinct rather than observation, Eli paused at the entrance, studying the rhythm of the barriers and the rotation of the beams. He moved slowly at first, testing the timing, then advanced steadily, each step precise and deliberate. Spectators watched in awe as he navigated the spiral, with perfect balance and timing. Virax followed, but his confidence faltered. He had relied on experience and physical ability, yet the human's approach demanded something different: foresight, patience, and adaptability. He moved carefully, but every step required more thought than he was used to. Eli's advantage grew, not because he was faster or stronger, but because he approached the challenge with a mind that anticipated possibilities before they occurred. As the two competitors neared the center of the spiral, the final puzzle of the stage became visible. Floating platforms arranged in a circular pattern required simultaneous timing and precise positioning. Activating one platform incorrectly could disrupt the entire sequence, forcing a competitor to start over. Eli observed carefully, noting the energy patterns and predicting the order of activation. Then, with steady movements, he began the sequence, timing each step perfectly. Virax attempted to follow, but his instinctive approach caused a minor misstep. A platform shifted unexpectedly, and he had to pause and readjust. Eli, noticing the change, adapted instantly and continued forward. The crowd erupted in cheers, realizing that the human was not only keeping pace but outperforming the alien noble in a test of skill, patience, and strategy. The noble felt a knot of anxiety in his chest. He had wagered his honor, assuming victory was certain. And yet here he was, struggling while the human progressed with calm determination. Every success Eli achieved was a mirror reflecting Virex's own overconfidence. Pride had blinded him, and now he faced the possibility of losing not just a challenge, but a measure of his reputation and standing. Eli reached the final step of the puzzle and paused. He had completed the stage without hesitation, without error, and without needing to rush. The audience erupted in applause, some rising to their feet in astonishment. Even the alien spectators who had doubted humans could no longer deny the human's skill. Eli's calm, intelligent approach had proven that creativity, patience, and observation could overcome even the most carefully designed challenges. Virex arrived shortly after, his posture still proud but his expression subdued. He had completed the stage, but the struggle had been clear to anyone watching. His confidence had been shaken, his certainty challenged. He bowed slightly to Eli, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement of the human's skill and ingenuity. The noble's mind raced as he considered the wager he had made, realizing that underestimating a human had been a serious mistake. The arena shifted once more, revealing the final part of this stage, a series of floating platforms over a vast energy field, requiring precise timing, balance, and careful calculation. Eli approached without hesitation, his mind focused, his movements deliberate. He tested each platform, anticipating its behavior, and moved steadily forward. Spectators watched in awe, recognizing that the human success was not accidental, but the result of careful thought and intelligent action. Virex followed with caution. The noble's strength and skill were impressive, yet this stage demanded more than physical ability. It required foresight, patience, and adaptability qualities that Eli had demonstrated repeatedly. Every step the human took reinforced the noble's growing realization. He had wagered his honor on an assumption that was no longer certain. Eli's calm confidence was now a direct challenge to the alien's pride. By the time both competitors reached the end of the stage, the audience was electrified. Eli had completed the challenges flawlessly, navigating every obstacle with ingenuity and precision. Lord Virex, though still powerful and skilled, had struggled in ways he had not anticipated. The noble's pride was tempered by respect, and he felt a quiet sense of regret for having underestimated a human. The wager he had made, confident in his victory, now carried the weight of unexpected consequence. Eli paused to catch his breath, observing the crowd and the alien noble. He felt no fear, only a growing sense of anticipation. Each stage had tested his mind and body, and he had succeeded not through strength but through observation, patience, and clever thinking. He understood that this was more than a competition. It was an opportunity to show that humans could rise above expectations and earn respect through skill and ingenuity. Lord Virex approached, maintaining his dignified posture. His silver-hued skin shimmered in the arena lights, and his eyes, once sharp with confidence, now reflected contemplation. He had underestimated the human, wagered his honor on an assumption, and found that assumption flawed. A quiet humility entered his demeanor, tempered by the respect he now held for Eli. The noble realized that true skill was not always defined by strength or experience alone. Sometimes, intelligence, adaptability, and patience could surpass even the greatest of abilities. As the arena prepared for the next stage, Eli felt a thrill of anticipation. He had faced the most difficult challenges so far and emerged successfully. The human's ingenuity had been tested and proven. Lord Virex, once confident in his inevitable victory, now carried a quiet uncertainty alongside his respect for the human. The stage ahead promised even greater challenges, yet Eli approached them without fear, ready to continue proving that humans could surpass expectations in ways that no alien had anticipated. The arena shifted once again, revealing the final stage. It was unlike anything Eli had faced before. A vast expanse of floating platforms stretched endlessly, some rotating slowly, others moving in complex patterns. Between them shimmered streams of energy that could push a competitor off balance if misjudged. Above, lights swirled in intricate designs, reflecting the challenge's difficulty. This stage was not only about movement or puzzles, it demanded a combination of all skills: observation, patience, creativity, and precise timing. Eli felt the familiar thrill in his chest. He had prepared himself for this moment. Lord Virex watched him carefully. His posture remained proud, yet there was a subtle tension in the way he moved. For the first time, he realized that his confidence might have been misplaced. The human had proven time and again that strength alone was not enough to guarantee victory. Virex's mind raced as he considered the wager he had made. His honor, his reputation, all rested on this final stage, and he could no longer take anything for granted. Every movement Eli made reminded him of the unexpected challenge that intelligence and adaptability could pose. Eli stepped onto the first floating platform. It tilted slightly under his weight, but he adjusted his stance instinctively. He observed the next platforms carefully, noting their patterns and timing. Unlike earlier stages, this one demanded continuous attention and adaptation. A single misstep could undo all progress. The human moved deliberately, never rushing, trusting his instincts while carefully observing the behavior of each platform. Virex followed, his long limbs carrying him with skill and grace. Yet each step required more calculation than he had expected. The noble had faced countless opponents, yet Eli's approach was different from anything he had encountered. The human relied not on physical ability alone, but on a combination of observation, logic, and creativity. Virex realized that his assumption that humans could not match his skill was now clearly flawed. Every step Eli took was a lesson in adaptability. The first section of platforms required navigating a series of rotating beams that changed direction unpredictably. Eli paused for a moment, watching the rotation patterns carefully. Then, timing his movement precisely, he leapt from one beam to the next. The crowd gasped as he moved with a combination of focus and grace that seemed almost effortless. The energy field surrounding the beams pulsed lightly, creating subtle shifts that could throw off even the most skilled competitor. Eli sensed the rhythm, adjusting his steps accordingly. Virex moved swiftly, but the subtle changes in the beams forced him to pause. His instincts were strong, yet the human's careful observation gave him an edge. For the first time, the alien noble felt a pang of concern. He had wagered his honor, assuming that Eli would falter under pressure, yet here he was, moving cautiously while the human advanced confidently. Virex clenched his fists subtly, acknowledging the truth that his pride had blinded him. Intelligence and adaptability could surpass strength and training. The next obstacle involved a series of platforms that could only be crossed by solving a pattern of energy pulses. Each pulse needed to be activated in a specific order to reveal the next safe path. Eli studied the energy patterns carefully. He observed the pulse frequency and noted subtle cues in the lights. Step by step, he pressed the energy nodes, advancing without error. The audience erupted into applause, astonished by the human's ability to solve the puzzle so quickly and efficiently. Virex approached the puzzle, relying on experience and instinct. He pressed several nodes quickly, but a misstep caused a minor reset. He paused, recalibrating, but the human had already moved ahead. Virex's pride was tempered by admiration and concern. He realized that he had underestimated humans, assuming that they would fail under complex challenges. Eli's calm intelligence and observation had proven that humans were capable of brilliance that even the most skilled alien competitors had difficulty anticipating. As they progressed, the final section of the stage appeared. It was a massive series of platforms, over a deep expanse of energy streams, some moving in intricate rotations, and others appearing and disappearing at irregular intervals. The challenge demanded the perfect combination of timing, observation, and creativity. Eli studied the stage carefully. He noticed subtle patterns in the movement, faint clues in the shifting light, and the rhythm of the energy streams. He realized that speed alone would not win here. Only careful observation and thoughtful action could succeed. Lord Virax moved forward as well. But every step required calculation. His usual confidence had been replaced with cautious precision. The human's approach had forced him to rethink his assumptions. The noble's honor, once wagered with certainty, now felt precarious. Each of Eli's successful steps served as a reminder that underestimating a human had been a mistake. Virax felt the weight of his pride, knowing that the outcome of this challenge could redefine the way aliens perceived humans. Eli reached a floating platform that rotated unexpectedly and was surrounded by multiple streams of energy. Many competitors would have panicked, rushing to cross. But Eli paused. He analyzed the rotation, noted the gaps between the energy streams, and timed his movement carefully. With precise steps, he crossed the platform, landing safely on the next. The audience erupted in cheers, recognizing that the human's success was the result of intelligence, patience, and ingenuity rather than brute strength. Virax followed, his movements skillful but slower than the human's. He adjusted, adapted, and recalculated each step. But he could feel the growing distance between himself and Eli. The noble's mind raced as he realized the wager he had made was no longer secure. His honor, tied to the human's failure, was at risk. The weight of the bet pressed on him, and he understood for the first time that pride and strength alone could not guarantee victory. The next obstacle required simultaneous activation of two moving platforms to create a bridge. Timing was critical. One misstep could destabilize the entire structure. Eli paused briefly, observing the patterns of both platforms. He calculated the timing, adjusted his stance, and moved forward in perfect synchronization. The platforms aligned, forming a stable bridge, and Eli crossed smoothly. The crowd cheered loudly, witnessing human skill and ingenuity at its finest. Virax approached the same platforms with determination. His long limbs moved gracefully, but he hesitated at a critical moment. The platforms shifted slightly, and the noble had to pause to avoid misalignment. Eli's careful observation had given him the advantage. Virax realized that his confidence had been his weakness. The human's calm, thoughtful approach had turned potential obstacles into triumphs, while the noble struggled with adjustments he had not anticipated. Finally, the last challenge appeared: a maze of floating platforms, energy barriers, and rotating beams that required perfect coordination. The crowd grew silent, sensing that the conclusion of the competition was near. Eli observed the maze carefully. He noticed subtle cues in the rotation of beams, the timing of energy barriers, and the safe paths between platforms. Each observation was noted, each step planned. He moved steadily, deliberately, advancing with confidence. Lord Virax followed, his movements precise yet cautious. He had strength, agility, and skill. But the human's adaptability and intelligence had forced him to reconsider every step. Pride and honor had led him to assume victory. Yet now he faced the reality that the human might succeed. Every step Eli took reinforced the noble's growing respect and, simultaneously, his regret. Eli reached the final platform, a floating surface surrounded by pulsing energy streams. One misstep could have reset the entire stage, but he moved with calm precision. He observed the rhythm of the streams, timed his movements carefully, and stepped onto the final platform. The arena erupted in applause. Spectators cheered, astonished by the human's achievement. Eli had completed the most difficult stage flawlessly, proving that intelligence, creativity, and patience could surpass expectations. Lord Virax approached, his posture still proud but his expression subdued. He bowed slightly to Eli, acknowledging the human's skill and ingenuity. The noble's honor, once wagered with certainty, had survived only because of his acknowledgement of the human's capabilities. Virax's mind was filled with a mixture of regret and admiration. He had underestimated a human and paid the price of humility, yet he had also gained a new understanding of what humans could achieve. Eli looked at Lord Virex calmly, offering a polite nod. There was no boastfulness in his expression, only quiet confidence. He had not only completed the challenges but had earned respect and admiration. The human had proven that his species was capable of intelligence, creativity, and adaptability that rivaled even the most skilled alien competitors. The crowd continued to cheer, some rising to their feet in astonishment. Humans and aliens alike witnessed a moment of triumph, not defined by strength or aggression, but by cleverness, patience, and the ability to adapt. Eli had shown that even against overwhelming odds, determination and intelligence could prevail. Lord Virex, reflecting on the wager he had made, understood that true honor was not simply about winning or losing, but about recognizing and respecting skill and ingenuity. Wherever it appeared, the human had challenged assumptions, exceeded expectations, and earned a place of admiration in the eyes of the spectators. As the arena lights shifted and the final applause echoed, Eli stepped forward, ready to leave the stage. Lord Virex approached him one last time, bowing deeply. "You have proven something remarkable," the noble said. "I wagered my honor, expecting failure. And instead, I have witnessed brilliance. Humans possess a skill and intelligence I had not anticipated. I am grateful for this lesson." Eli nodded politely. "Thank you," he replied. "I only did what I could. Observation, patience, and thinking carefully can overcome many obstacles. We all have our strengths." The alien noble smiled, a genuine expression of respect. The crowd cheered once more, recognizing the significance of the moment. Humans, often underestimated, had demonstrated qualities that could rival even the greatest alien competitors. Lord Virex had learned humility, and Eli had proven that cleverness and creativity could triumph over expectation and arrogance. The arena slowly quieted as the spectators processed what they had witnessed. Humans and aliens alike had seen that intelligence, adaptability, and patience were as powerful as strength or skill. Eli had not only completed the challenge but had earned respect, admiration, and a new understanding of what his species was capable of achieving. Lord Virex remained beside him, a silent companion in acknowledgement. The noble had lost the wager in a sense, but gained something far more valuable: insight into the human mind and a newfound respect for a species he had underestimated. Eli had changed perceptions, and in doing so, had shown that true greatness comes not from arrogance or pride, but from intelligence, creativity, and the courage to face challenges without fear. The final lights dimmed, signaling the end of the competition. Eli stepped forward, leaving the stage with calm dignity. Lord Virex followed, his presence a reminder of the lesson learned. The crowd erupted in a final wave of applause, celebrating not only the human's success, but the spirit of ingenuity, determination, and respect that had defined the entire challenge. In that moment, humans were no longer underestimated. They were recognized as capable, intelligent, and deserving of respect. Eli had proven that courage, cleverness, and adaptability could achieve what many had thought impossible. And for Lord Virex, the lesson of humility and honor would remain with him forever, a reminder that assumptions can be misleading, and true skill is found where least expected.